I've always believed that the agricultural sector is one of the most important players when it comes to protecting and healing the environment. And today's guest, Eilecia Bovard, agrees. That's why she and her co-founder, Nicholas Bowie, launched Perfect Farm after working together on the project at Tomorrow University. Perfect Farm is a platform that allows dairy and livestock farmers to manage their emissions and make their farms more sustainable while getting an ROI from their hard work. Check out this episode to learn why farmers are so keen on reducing their carbon footprint. By the way, the Sustainability Champions podcast will be taking a hiatus from the 14th of August until the end of the year to recharge. Sustainability has to be sustainable. We're very grateful for you, our listeners, for being a part of the Sustainability Champions community. While we're away, you can check out previous episodes on our website, YouTube, or your favorite podcasting platform. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Hey, Eilecia, thanks so much for joining the Sustainability Champions podcast. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me here, Daniel.
Of course. So the way I like to start these conversations is taking a step back and looking at things at a bigger picture point of view and really understanding what exactly is Perfect Farm.
Perfect Farm is a platform that supports livestock farmers within the European Union to find the technologies to help them to reduce their emissions. And in addition to that, find the supplemental revenue income channels to support those technologies to reduce those emissions.
Okay, sounds good. And so if we take a step back from that and understand the context, this is all about livestock farmers reducing emissions. So I'm sure a lot of people, and certainly I've heard about livestock creating emissions. But just to set the context, what exactly is going on with livestock and emissions?
So we're specifically focusing on dairy farms and cattle farms because, as we may have heard, cows produce methane emissions through their burps and their gases that they release. So, and also through their manure that they produce. So when we just let the manure sit on the earth, then it releases methane emissions as it biodegrades. So one of the approaches that we're doing is we're working with cattle farmers and dairy farmers to put technologies on their farm that help them manage these emissions. So for example, we'll partner with biogas plant distributors that already many cattle farmers are interested in putting on their farms. And then once they begin that process, we then can measure what is the potential emissions reductions. And with those measurements, we can take them through the certification process to the voluntary carbon market.
Gotcha. Okay. And so you mentioned, first of all, it's actually news to me that manure, how do you pronounce that? Yeah, manure. There we go. So it's actually news to me that manure produces methane emissions, although I suppose that makes sense. I was focused on the gas part that cows emit, primarily through the burping mechanism. But yeah, interesting to hear about manure. So what are some of the other technologies? It sounded like it was a plural. There's more than one. So there's the biogas. Are there other things that you're focusing on?
Well, we're focusing specifically on biogas at the moment because we have found that many cattle farmers are interested in this technology to begin with. So it's not necessarily us going into a conversation with them, trying to convince them of these technologies that they need to implement, but meeting them where they are and what they're most interested in putting on their farm and bringing into their business model. There are other technologies such as feed supplements that help them to reduce emissions, but these at the moment tend to be an added cost to the farmer versus a reduction. Although a biogas plant is a tremendous investment for farmers, there is a return on investment. They do in return get digestate from the process, which can be an organic fertilizer for their land. In addition to that, they're creating a renewable energy source, which can be sold back to the grid, and they can receive income for that. So there are many opportunities there for them to cut costs and also to gain new revenue streams.
Wow. Okay. And so where does one of my questions was about the motivation as to why a farmer would want to get involved with a program like this, and sounds like there is a very clear ROI. First of all, fertilizer, sell energy, and then it sounded like you were talking about carbon credits as well. So there is that aspect. In terms of how Perfect Farm fits into the equation, Perfect Farm is essentially a dual marketplace from what I've gathered. Is that a fair understanding?
Yes.
Great.
So we could be considered carbon market intermediaries. We connect to the farmers, take them through the certification process to participate in the voluntary carbon market. We then, with the credits that they produce, we then turn around and sell those credits to interested buyers. Those interested buyers could look like any corporations out there that are in return seeking to reduce their own emissions within their corporate activities. Something that is unique in how we're approaching it, or we believe is unique, is that we're focusing on insetting, which means that we're focusing on organizations that are specifically connected to farmers within their value chain or supply chain. We think that these players or stakeholders will have an interest in the carbon credits that the farmers they work with are producing.
Right, that makes sense. And out of curiosity, this is a slightly different question, but aside from the biogas technology, are you working with farmers in any other way in terms of helping them, for instance, move towards regenerative agriculture, or somehow get involved more on a kind of like on an input level, rather than waiting for the cows to produce a bunch of stuff and not really focusing on working with the soil on a more, I suppose, basic and further up the chain, if that makes sense?
Yes, so we start with where the farmers are. What are they looking to already put on their farm that could be eligible to reduce their emissions and participate in the carbon credit market? And then when we engage in a conversation with them around technologies they're already interested in that can serve them to reduce their emissions, we then bring in the conversation that there are other compounding methodologies that we can add in there. So if they are, again, implementing a biogas plant, they produce digestate, which is a chemical-free fertilizer for the land. This could also potentially qualify for more carbon credits. If they agree to adopt more regenerative farming practices, such as no-tilling, or certain crop rotations or different grazing practices, this also could potentially qualify for more carbon credits. So the main focus is find out where they are, what are they most interested in at this moment, and then find other additional methodologies that we could bring in to stack onto that. Cool. So that's maximizing the potential for their reductions, but meeting them where they are.
Right. So it's a multi-phase approach where it just, as you said, meet the farmer where they are, but ultimately you could have multiple methodologies that you follow, i.e., meaning, yeah, you can get carbon credits for through the biogas technology. You could also get carbon credits through changing how the farmers actually practice farming, and reducing CO2 emissions that way as well. Well, that's a very cool approach, and something that the way we got in touch was through Tomorrow University, who I spoke with a little while ago on the podcast as well. And my understanding is that you've been working with Tomorrow University to learn about how to implement this and put all this together, and they've been supporting you in creating Perfect Farm. So how has Tomorrow University been involved, and what's been your experience with ToU?
Mm-hmm. Tomorrow University is my university. So I'm a Master of Science student in Sustainability, Entrepreneurship, and Technology with Tomorrow University. And the Perfect Farm is a product of my learning experience with them. I don't think the Perfect Farm would exist today if it wasn't for a specific assignment that they brought to us, which required us to spot a gap in the market connected to the food supply chain. This is where we found a real need to support livestock farmers to reduce their emissions. And it also prompted us to design a business model around the gap in the market that we saw. So this is how Perfect Farm came to fruition. At the end of the assignment, one of my cohort members and I, we both were quite passionate about the topic and the project and wanted to go deeper. And so we decided to found the perfect farm, and we've been working on it for the past year. And in September, we hope to have our soft launch with 7 farmers from Norway.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
we are on track.
Well, congratulations. I mean, that's very exciting. And the I'm gonna kind of jump around here, but the 7 farmers from Norway, how did you pick Norway as the region to begin?
I think it chose us. So I'm based in Spain, and my co-founder is based in Norway. And he had a connection with a farmer in Norway, and somehow this one farmer connection in Norway spread to 6 other farms. So basically, when one farmer starts a movement, or at least takes the first steps forward, other farmers get interested in what that farmer is doing. And then they start to have conversations around it, and then it starts to spread and interest grows. So it went from one farmer in Norway, which was a neighbor of my co-founder, and then has kind of spread, as they say, through the grapevine. And that's how we arrived with 7 farmers from Norway, which is a good starting point, I think.
Yeah, not too overwhelming, but enough to get an idea of how it works. And will you be working globally with farmers, or are you going to be focused on a specific region as far as where the farmers are?
That's a very good question. Initially, we were focused specifically on the European Union, or just outside of the European Union, Norway, for example. But recently, we've received a lot of interest from emerging economies. I had a call with a farmer in Mozambique. I also will have a call with a farmer from the north of India. So it's interesting to see that there are other countries and economies that are very interested in this financing mechanism, and also the support there to bring this financing mechanism to different farmers. So we are open to that. We also see a lot of potential for the US market, but right now we're focusing on Europe, and then hopefully we'll expand to these other emerging economies or to the United States and beyond. Let's see where we go.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, agriculture is such a key part of, well, life for us. And it actually creates quite a substantial amount of emissions as well. And I think, personally, my belief is that agriculture is one of the key instrumental industries in reversing not just climate change, but a lot of the issues that the environment is facing. I mean, certainly in the US, if you look at the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, I mean, that's all because of agriculture primarily. And so changing agricultural practices, it's not just about, reducing cow burps. It's also about how the soil functions, how the water quality is. And there's so many effects that agriculture has. If there's a way to turn agriculture into a mechanism that actually supports biodiversity, supports the environment, rather than tries to mechanize it and turn it into a big conveyor belt. Yeah, I just think that agriculture is in many ways the answer to a lot of the issues that we're seeing. So
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that's something that we feel as well. We are at Perfect Farm, we are on the farmer's side. We want to support the farmer in whatever they need to make this transition happen. We also see them as allies. They are allies in regenerating the earth, the soils. And we see them as a great opportunity to aid the goals of the earth and the world in reducing our emissions and meeting this climate change challenge that we have. So we definitely see them as allies. There's great potential there for them to do this in a more healing, effective, and regenerating way. So this is what we're aiming for as well. Right now, the focus is on transition, but then there's also the future of what this industry could look like. So this is where education also plays a big role. This is something that we think about, the future of agricultural education, as well as perhaps controlled environment agriculture. These are all very interesting topics to think about when we think about the future of what this industry could look like. But the farmers will always be there. They'll always be the healers of the earth.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's interesting.
If we enable them.
Exactly. If they have the tools and if there's the financial motivation and incentive to do that. I think that's a really big challenge for a lot of farmers, at least in the US, based on what I've heard, is the transition from kind of your conventional farming styles, which are heavily subsidized by the US government, to non-conventional regenerative agriculture, which I'm not sure how subsidized that is. But I have a separate question. I'm curious to know your thoughts on this, considering what you just said. Cell-based meat is now becoming a very popular technology to invest a lot of money into. And I think chicken just got FDA approval, and cell-based chicken just got FDA approval in the US. What do you think of cell-based meat? Because ultimately, and I guess the context for this question is, number one, farming, I believe, and I actually believe that correct livestock agriculture is actually very beneficial for the environment, because it imitates the cycle of how the animals work in nature, in the wild. So the environment can be benefited by proper livestock farming. But cell-based meat is all about removing basically the animal from the equation by growing meat in a laboratory, in the name of two things. Number one is removing the ethical question of whether or not it's ethical to kill for food. And then number two is the environmental question of having a bunch of farms that are generating all sorts of nasties that go into the environment. So with that context, what do you think about cell-based meat?
That is a big question. I will do my best to try to answer it. And for me, I heard actually two questions there. First, what is the value and what will continue to be the value of, let's say, livestock farming and meat as we know it for consumption? And then what are the possibilities there for cell-based produced meat? I see, first of all, you're absolutely right. Animals and livestock animals, they play an essential role in continuing the ecological cycle that we see in nature. So I do think that they are there to serve a purpose. Now, how we farm today is really based on an efficiency model. And if we're talking about livestock animals for an efficiency model, well, this has all kinds of very sad repercussions that come along with it. I won't go into the details. You can look that up on your own. But there is a possibility that this can be done in a sustainable, circular, and regenerative way. I had a conversation a while back with Will Harris. I don't know if you've heard about him. He is a regenerative livestock farmer in the United States, in Georgia. He's an incredible farmer, a great inspiration, I think, for any livestock farmer that's wanting to make this transition to more sustainable practices. I really admire what he's doing. But I know that it's not easy for most farmers to be able to do what he has done. But there is possibility there. Now, coming back to cell-based meat, this is very interesting, especially when we think about food supply. How are we going to meet the demand for food supply when population is set to grow to 9 billion in the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades? We will not be able to expand livestock production because we just don't have enough land to accommodate the animal protein resources that we would need to be able to keep up with the food demand of the population. So how will we do that is the big question. And this is where the future of educating the next generation of farmers will play a big role. This is where controlled environment agriculture could also play a big role, which is where cell-based meat comes into play. So if we think about how do we meet the demand to feed a growing, ever-growing population, especially that has perhaps a hunger towards meat, I do see an opportunity there for cell-based meat. Long answer.
An interesting
Did I
answer.
answer the questions?
Yeah, but thank you for sharing that. I think it's it's interesting, and we can go down this path for a long time. But I suppose without getting too sidetracked, going back to Tomorrow University, after that little sidetrack of mine, I'd be curious to know from your experience. I mean, it sounds like you had a really great experience there, and it really opened up a a big opportunity for you, as you've outlined. What would you say, or to someone else who is interested potentially in going to Tomorrow University, how would you, what would be advice that you would have, or recommendation to attend?
Well, I joined Tomorrow University because I needed a like-minded community that was going to support me in my ideas and my thinking and my exploration when it came to the topic of sustainability and entrepreneurship, but also that was going to be a great sounding board and place where I could ask questions and be asked questions and really grow from. So if you're looking for a community that shares your value system, and if you're looking into a university like Tomorrow University, it's highly likely that you're seeking a community that wants to really make an impactful change in the world, then I recommend giving it a try. Come to one of the open day sessions, connect with a learner. You can write me, call me. I'm happy to have a chat. I think when we're talking about building for impact, any kind of business, the community that you connect with will play an essential role in how you can do that, or how successfully you can do that. And that's what Tomorrow University has successfully built up until this point, is an incredible community that supports you in that journey to make an impact, whether that's in a personal capacity, within your own community, within your own organization, or in building a new business out in the world.
If we go back in time a little bit to that moment when you started to look into this gap in the agricultural or food supply space, was there a specific moment when you realized this is what I want to do? I mean, you mentioned that you and your co-founder were very interested in it, but sounds like, based on the way you described it, that you weren't expecting that you would turn this assignment into hopefully a lifelong business.
Yes, that was the nice surprise, I think, of participating in the Tomorrow University assignments. I came into the university with one idea of what I thought I wanted to do, and it was more within a local capacity here in Spain, within Mallorca. And then after having done a few of the assignments, they invited us to explore other possibilities. Where are there other needs in the world, either within our local community or beyond? And this opened my mind up to, first, where is there real need? Because if the goal here is to make an impact, it's first find out where can you make that impact? Where is there the need to make the impact and make a big difference? So they're inviting us to explore that a bit more deeply. And then in addition to that, they're also inviting us to see a bigger, broader picture. I don't think I would have chosen to focus on building a startup that was so broadly based within Europe or within the European Union. Again, I was hyper-focused on local. So it opened my mind up to what is possible and where can we really make a difference and change, which was a pleasant surprise. I never thought I would be working in agriculture, livestock agriculture, or carbon markets per se, but this is where we are, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, well, it's fun when life starts throwing curveballs at you, and yeah, makes changes along the way. So you mentioned that you're looking to do your soft launch in September, which is just basically a month away now, which is, I imagine, both stressful and very exciting. What else is next? I mean, once this soft launch happens and you hopefully everything goes perfectly, what else have you got planned in the pipeline that you're able to share?
Well, the first focus will be with Perfect Farm. Let's see what the proof of market will be, their proof of concept, what that will show us. And then finding, if it doesn't work in the favor that we think, then finding other ways to pivot and address the challenges that are there. Is from a personal capacity, I always focus, my main focus is to connect to people, to find out what is their current reality, what is their perspective in their reality, and again, to meet them where they are and to try to find solutions in a collaborative way to help them to get to where they need to be and where we all collectively need to be. So enabling those conversations, enabling those connections, and enabling that impact, that transition, that change that needs to happen. That's where you'll find me whether it's Perfect Farm or something else. I mean, now it's Perfect Farm, but it's in that connection and creating that collaborative space.
I think that's really important. And the idea of, moving towards a sustainable environment is something that it's huge. It's a global challenge. And I think everyone can play a part. And so, as you said, this idea of collaboration and working together, I think is a crucial element of that, because ultimately these challenges and questions are so big that trying to do it all by yourself is a little overwhelming. And it's important that we find other like-minded people that are interested in the same kind of solving the same issues as we are, and clumping together, and then going out and putting solutions in place as a team effort. I just don't think it's possible or feasible to do it completely on your own. So it's great to hear that you're fostering those environments, collaborative environments, and really looking for ways to get as many people involved as possible.
Yes, thank you. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have when making this transition is we are operating in silos. So you have biogas plants focusing, I'll use Perfect Farm as the example, focusing on biogas, farmers doing their farming, organizations focused on their emissions. But when we all work together, and let's say, especially if they're all connected in the same supply chain or value chain, then there's more synergy, more opportunities for synergy, and more opportunities to make this transition happen faster and in a more efficient way. So
absolutely, and I agree with that. And that's a big part of what Sustainability Champions is all about, is demonstrating that everyone can make an impact. And I think it really comes down to just finding the thing that interests you the most, because there's so many ways that you can make an impact, whether it's agriculture, water quality, water pollution, plastic, climate change. I mean, there's just so many different things. And as you said, 9 billion people projected in the next decade or two. So there's enough people in the world with enough interests, broadly speaking, that if you just focus on the one thing that you enjoy, there will be enough people focusing on all the other aspects. So yeah, I think it's important to find the thing that you're passionate about and find your community. It sounds like Tomorrow University really helped with that as well, which is great.
Yes, it's been an incredible learning experience. And I think what's so brilliant about what they do is they invite a project-based, or what I would call active learning experience. So it's not theory imparted to you, and then you have to, when you get your degree, go out and share that theory. It is really solving for real world issues and real world problems in the moment, working with collaborators, organizations, understanding that they are also working on this. How can we, with our student minds, assist them in this process? So I think the learning experience that Tomorrow University is offering is absolutely an incredible one, extremely valuable. And when we're talking about sustainability, entrepreneurship, and technology, it's these three pillars together are where we can make meaningful change, and they're facilitating it beautifully.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad to hear it, and it's great to see that you're a direct product of that style and that approach. So, for anyone who's interested in learning more about Perfect Farm and understanding about the work you're doing, or if they're a farmer and want to potentially participate and speak to you and learn about how they can get involved with reducing their emissions while simultaneously getting an ROI, where is the best place to go? Website, social media, email address if you'd like, etc.
So you can go to our website, which is perfectfarm.com, or actually perfect-farm.com. And you can also find us on LinkedIn, where you also find me as well, and my co-founder, Nicholas Bö. So please connect with us there. Send us an email. We would be happy to chat, answer any questions that you have, and happy to help in any way that we can.
Amazing. Well, Eilecia, thank you very much for your time and for going through Perfect Farm and this industry with me today. I think, as I mentioned, the way that you're approaching it from a collaborative perspective and really focusing on such an important, in my opinion, industry, which is agriculture, I think is really, really inspiring and great to hear. What I love about what you're doing is really taking an issue and finding a way to motivate farmers to make a change beyond just sort of it's the quote unquote right thing to do, or it's a good thing. It's really, let's make it super simple. You, farmer, will make money by supporting and by supporting the environment and by going in a cleaner, healthier approach towards your farming. And I think that's wonderful because it takes all the questions out of whether or not a farmer should do it. So I think it's really great. Good luck on your soft launch in September and all of the plans that you have moving forward.
Thank you, Daniel. It's been a pleasure to be here with you and Sustainability Champions podcast. And I look forward to continuing the conversation again in the near future.
Likewise. Thanks very much.